Hello, everyone. We'll wait for the crowd to move, shuffle through. So yeah, I'm glad that the presenters before me had lots of pictures, because I'm not going to have a whole pile of pictures to show you. This is going to be about the processes behind the art and making sure that your art is shipped on time, on budget, and best practices around that type of thing. So we'll start with one set of images to give you a little background around where I come from. Next.
And we all know
Yeah? Well, this one stays up late.
They all want to meet Neymar. But me, I am Neymar. I'm De Bruyne. I'm Dybala.
And my Mbappe is more Mbappe than Mbappe.
Plus Mbappé que moi.
This icon played for years without winning the Champions League. But I've already won it twice!
Ronaldo's the best striker in the world. But on my team, play centre back.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Not that way.
What? You can do that.
Okay.
Ronnie, run that burger. They say Pep's a genius. Pero yo le gano.
My historia exterior.
Can you reach the final in Madrid?
Madrid? It's right here in LA.
So here it is, the biggest game of the year, the Champions League final.
That's right, James.
Cool. What's going on here?
We'll take it from here.
So some of you might recognize that game. It's a small game called FIFA. So I'm going to give you a little background about myself. I'm an art director with Electronic Arts on FIFA. FIFA Ultimate Team is my kind of primary focus, along with the user interface and then the franchise branding for FIFA as well. I've worked on small teams in my career and massive international teams. And in nearly 23 years that I've been working in games, there's a lot that's happened. There's been a huge amount of change. One thing that never changes is great creative ideas. There's always great creative vision and great creative ideas. But the process has changed and it's evolved, and we've gotten better and better and better. And I've learned a lot of things about how to create art and the processes around that in my career. So I'm going to talk about that. One of the things I don't do anymore is I don't sleep under my desk anymore, and you shouldn't either. So hopefully this will help prevent anything like that. Okay, so FIFA. Again, as some of you know, it's an iterative sports title. So that means that we make it every single year. And our yearly changes are actually very, very major investments, contrary to chatter on Reddit and YouTube and all that kind of thing. We have many, many stakeholders, many people who are interested in what we're doing and the outcome of what we're doing. We have very diverse opinions. We have multiple studios, one fantastic studio here in Bucharest. We have to coordinate all of that. And we have many, many dependencies across disciplines. So without good process in our development, we wouldn't be able to ship our game and we wouldn't be successful. So the fact that our ship date, it never moves. That does not change. That's not an option for us. So we have to get the game finished. We have huge amounts of volume of our art that we create, and it's always expected that that's going to be extremely high quality. So we have to be efficient as well. So here's an overview. I'm going to talk about just common creative process, very high level 101 type stuff for the games in particular. and then some of the common pitfalls, things that can go wrong in your process, and then some techniques for making sure that those things don't happen. So creative process, again, this is about the development cycle. This is about games in particular. One of the things that people talked about earlier was fine art, and this is not fine art. This is commercial art. This is art that's part of a greater collaborative process. So your piece slots in with everybody else's pieces, and it all has to come together at the same time in a nice, neat package. So one of the things that people often start with is idea generation, and that's kind of a mistake. You don't want to just start throwing out ideas before you know what the problem is. We're visual problem solvers. That's what we do in games with our art. So you want to identify the problem first, and here's a common example. Player engagement is declining. What are we going to do about it? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do some research. We're going to find out why. What are the reasons that we think player engagement is declining? People are playing it for a month, and then they don't come back to it anymore. So we find out that the players, they want more customization and they want more ways to play their game. Great. So now we're going to start looking at our ideas. We've identified the problem. We've got some research on it. So now we're going to generate ideas. We're going to say, okay, let's put new hairstyles on our characters, or let's add seasonal clothing content that can be downloadable, or we can add some new game modes. Then you want to go and you want to start to evaluate those ideas that you've got. And you want to narrow them down. And you want to build out a high-level plan for your visual goals. And you want to create an example of the quality standards that you have as well. So you're going to say, okay, we've looked at these ideas that we had. And if we want to do new game modes, it's going to cost too much. It's cost prohibitive. But people really want customization. So we're going to go with the seasonal content. Defining the goals. So there's a number of ways that you can start to define your goals. And this is sort of it's going to be either a high level picture of what you want to create and why you want to build it, or it's going to be a quality example. So vertical slice. So we have creative briefs. We sometimes do prototypes. You sometimes make a visual target, or you do a vertical slice of the entire game. And then you start to add all the detail that you possibly can think about. So you're going to define how you're going to build this. So you're going to look at feature briefs, technical briefs, project plans. And these are going to be all the little tiny low-level pieces that involves everybody that you can possibly think of. And then you've got your plan, and you're going to move into production. So at this point, what could possibly go wrong? You've covered everything. Here's what goes wrong. So creative direction change. This often happens. You've got a stakeholder, somebody who has a voice in what your creative ideas are, but they come from left field, or they come in with a late opinion. What happens? Everybody panics. Another one is creeping doubt. So the team they've been working with the same idea for a while now, and there's no commonly aligned pillars that you can tie things back to. So the teams sort of collectively start to feel like, the solution that we have is wrong. And again, people start to panic. Partway into production, you figure, okay, you realize it's going to take too long to build. So the estimates weren't accurate. The resources had to be reallocated. Somebody's been assigned to another team. Everybody panics. Then you've got creative churn and excessive iteration. So and same with the conflict over what's good enough. So there's a combination of people having conflicting ideas, and you keep churning and churning and iterating on this work, and it's not working out. It's taking too long. The conflict over what's good enough. So that's when you might have a game designer or a producer or somebody comes in and says, the quality's fine, let's just get it out the door. And the art director says, no, it's garbage. We have to, do another round. And where do you go from there, right? It's not great. So what happens when those things happen, when those problems occur? So overtime often goes up. That's a very, very common one. Morale goes down. People quit. Features get cut. And your game sometimes doesn't ship at all, or it ships late. And on something like FIFA, we can't have that happen. How do we prevent these problems from happening? So these are the basics. Get organized, be realistic, be flexible. So being organized about your vision, it doesn't make you a project manager. So don't worry, you're still an artist. And it shouldn't compromise your artistic integrity. And being organized is an absolutely invaluable tool as anybody in a leadership or director type role it needs to have. It's going to allow you to get what you want more often. It's going to allow you to get it to a higher standard. And it can be one of your most important skills. Okay, so in my career, I've gone through many different variations of process, good and bad and whatnot. And these are the basic kind of key pillars that I've found that are really necessary for getting your art done on quality, on time. So identify, clarify, align, prioritize, track and adjust, and communicate. And I'll go into each one of them in detail. So identification, there's a number of things you need to identify. So this, before I kind of go into this one, these pillars, so everybody knows that the development cycle it's not totally linear, right? It's iterative. So I kind of think of it as like a spiral. So you go forward, you kind of come back and correct. You go forward, you come back, and you keep working your way down the timeline. So all of these, so this isn't necessarily in order of when they happen. These are just common kinds of things that you need to use throughout the process. So identify your team. That's an early one for sure. So you're going to figure out every single person who's going to touch your art or your feature at some point. So it's going to be your immediate art and engineering teams. You got to think about partner groups, anyone that's a dependency whatsoever on getting this stuff done. Don't forget about audio artists and engineers, because audio always seems to be the last thing that people think about. So think of absolutely everyone. And if you don't know, ask people that have been working on projects in the past. And then you're going to identify your stakeholders. So if you're in a small indie group and there's only 3 of you, you probably don't have a whole pile of stakeholders that you have to worry about. But on something like FIFA that's international and as huge as it is, we have many, many, many stakeholders. So these are people that need to know what you're working on, and they need to know the status of it as you go along, and they need to be informed about all these creative changes that kind of happen. So anyone who's going to have an opinion that needs to be actioned on throughout your process, throughout your project, those are going to be your stakeholders. Okay, and then identify your review content. So there's more to just throwing some art out to a couple of people that you've produced. You want to get organized about that as well. So you want to figure out who's going to come to your reviews. So who needs to see it? Different people at different times, all the same people all the way through. Think about all those kinds of details. The format. So is it going to be everyone coming over and looking at it around a desk on a single monitor? Or is it a dedicated art review room? Or is it something more versatile and portable like Shotgun? How are you actually going to show this art? And then, the cadence. So how often are you going to have reviews? Will the frequency change throughout the development cycle? Are you going to have more at the beginning and less at the end, or vice versa? And then figure out what your deliverables are. So get an idea for kind of the state of your art at certain key milestones. So those would probably be your formal reviews. You're going to know that we're going to have something early on in pre-production. We're going to have several throughout production, and then we're going to potentially have some for finishing things up near final. And set the agenda and the details of your review before you actually have these reviews, whether they're formal or informal. So everybody knows what to expect when they show up to look at the art. So a lot of times people will come in, artists will bring their art in, and they'll bring it in front of an art director, and you don't know what you're looking at. It's like, at what state is this in? What things can I comment on and can't I comment on? So if you're prepared for those kinds of things, it's going to go a long way. So now you want to clarify roles. Does anybody know what a RACI is? Has anybody used it? Okay, RACIs are amazing. And this is just, it's simply a chart. But RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And this is basically, it helps you define the swim lanes for all the people that are going to be looking at your art or your creative. So responsible is who are the actual people that are making that art. Accountable, who's on the hook for it. So when things go sideways, who are they going to come to? Usually it's a lead or an art director. Who is going to be consulted? So that's an expert in the domain, somebody that you need to collaborate with but isn't actually doing the work. And then informed, who needs to know the result of what happened in your reviews, or what happened from past sign-off, or what happened when something went wrong. That's the informed group. So then you go to clarify your stakeholder details. So this part is extremely important. you need to know who is going to be involved in these reviews, and you want to know how much involvement they have in it. So are these people that are coming and they're just giving their feedback, their opinion, and it gets filtered through the art director or the lead and they can make the decisions on their own? Or is this somebody that says, I want this blue and you must make it blue? So you need to know that beforehand. If you don't know that beforehand, you can get into these situations where somebody thinks they're coming in and they're giving sign off and they say that it's blue, and the next time they see it, it's orange, and they lose their mind. That's not okay. So you want to really, really get this stuff nailed down. And then sign off. That's a really important thing too. So if somebody is going to be giving their official sign off, they need to see it, and they need to say yes or no to it. Those are going to be your primary stakeholders. So then alignment it's huge. So you always want to make sure that you're aligned with your primary stakeholders. So once you've identified these people and you've clarified everybody's roles, you want to get alignment with those stakeholders. So one of the things that you would want to align on is your RACI as well. So you've put all these people in that box and you know who everyone is. All of those people need to agree to it too. You can't make this RACI and then tell people later that they were on the informed list and they thought they were consulted. So this alignment happens all the way along the process. So if we go back to the creative process and all those steps in there, this is a really super simplified version of it, but it makes it really clear. So when you identify the problem, you go back to your stakeholders. Are we aligned that this is the problem we're trying to solve? Is this, here's the research that we've collected. Do you understand and agree with it? And this can be happening formally or informally, but you should always be checking back with the people that have a say in your work. This is our end goal. Are you aligned with that? I think this tends to be the number one area where things go sideways. Alignment ensures that everyone knows what to expect, and it ensures a level of predictability that prevents everyone from panicking. And if there's anything that I've learned in my experience as an art director, is that anyone above you, nobody likes surprises. People like surprises on their birthday. They don't like surprises in games. So if you can be predictable and they know what they're going to see and they're going to understand it and they've already been aligned with it and they know what's coming, that's going to save your butt. So if at any point you don't have alignment from your stakeholders, stop, don't go forward. Get aligned first. Then prioritization. This is really important as well. So for something like FIFA, prioritization is huge because our ship date doesn't move. And if anything goes wrong in the meantime, you have to know what's going to get cut off. So for your deliverables, which ones are the most important and which ones can fall off if things start to go sideways? Your vision. Know what's holistically essential to the success of your visuals. So what can't be compromised along the way? And again, this prioritization would be aligned with the people above you, right? So you all agree, this is what is essential and this is what we can't lose. And then quality. So you want to align on the quality as well. You want to know what your visual targets are and you want to align on what's expected for the quality bar. Quality is often affected by capacity and budget, right? So if you only have a short period of time, you're not going to get the most beautiful thing that's going to take twice as long. You have to sort of that's where the be realistic comes in. And not all artists are equally skilled. So you might be working with, 5 different artists, 2 different artists, 50 different artists, and you're going to get variations in quality. And you have to plan for that. You have to know that there's going to be iterations. And then you're going to have to figure out, again, what needs to be reprioritized if the art team can't hit those targets or the budget doesn't support the targets. And then the last part about that, just with your art team and their different levels of quality, if the iterations become excessive, that's when you go back and you get aligned with your stakeholders and you figure out what the new acceptable quality level is. You make a decision and you move forward. Tracking and adjusting. Project managers, we call them development directors, whatever your group calls them. They're your allies, and they are absolutely invaluable when things start to change. It's their job to sort of keep things on track, so use them, lean on them. Work with them to get your team structure organized and get your features all scheduled out. If you are not an organized person by nature, or you're less experienced with leading or directing, it's kind of your first time doing it, use the project managers to help you. And your partnership with them makes everyone happy. The more organized you are, the better you can plan and raise red flags if things start to go wrong. Right, so if something comes up and it's kind of come from left field, again, go back with your project manager and adjust. So you want to go back to your stakeholders again. You want to align on the changes that have happened and figure out what the solution is. They all agree to the solution that you've set out. And then you want to go back and you want to let everybody know. So you want to inform your full RACI. And then again, if something new comes in, something has to fall off. And that's something that the game industry doesn't understand very well. So they think if something new comes in, everything else has to stay there, and we all have to work overtime, and we all have to kill ourselves to try and get the stuff out. And that shouldn't be the case. You have to have your priorities in order so you know what you've prioritized ahead of time, so you know what can fall off. Communication. This is essential, and this covers all of it, all the other pieces above. You need to communicate constantly. So don't work in a silo. That's one of the things that people often do, right? So you want to have you want to be sure that your stakeholders know what's going on. Everybody that's involved knows what's going on, what state you're in. Like I said, formal and informal communication. So don't just send an email that has this gigantic list of all the things that happened in the review and expect that the people that are going to be looking at it are going to see it, are going to read through all of it, go and have coffee with them, go and drop by their desk or their office or whatever, and make sure that they know if they could potentially come in a week later, 2 weeks later, and throw everything for a loop. So take care of all that stuff. And don't hold on to your ideas for too long. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the meeting before the meeting. Does anybody know that term? So that's like when you go and you meet somebody in the hall and you kind of give them an idea of what they're going to see and what they're going to find out at the meeting that they're going to, so that they're already aligned with you. So when they come in, they don't lose their minds or freak out or change direction because they know that it's coming. And don't be afraid to ask for help. That is huge. A lot of times people sort of feel like, I got to go in there and I got to make the best thing. You know, the art director's going to look at it, or the line producer's going to look at it, or the executive producer's going to look at it. And I got to make it, totally perfect before they see it. Don't worry about that. Just as long as you keep communicating, keep that all those ideas freely flowing, you're going to be in a good position. And don't ignore red flags. So don't, again, when something goes wrong, don't try to hide it. You want to escalate it. You want to bring it to the attention of the people that need to know so that you can adjust. Usually that's your project manager. That's it. Here we go. So above all, your great ideas, they deserve to see the light of day. And when they don't, it's usually because there's been some poor processes in place. And that's a shame. So the tighter you can get, the more organized you can get, the better you can get with your communication and sharing all those kinds of things and building your ideas, the better you're going to have success. Thanks.